Judgment time for some absentee MPs. But as we're beginning to learn over the last 24 hours, there is some partisan dilemma at play that we need to cut through tonight. We've had this conversation before, but finally, Parliament has taken some action, referring the conduct of MPs, 3 of them, to the Privileges Committee, which is really stirring up some very, very interesting dynamics. As you see there, we have 3 members of Parliament who are now subject of a Privileges Committee probe that will lead possibly to their removal as members of Parliament. And the first, obviously, is the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Mr. Porte, and then, of course, you have Sarah Adwoa-Safo, and then you have Kennedy Judgement. And as we've heard tonight, we've heard from the various parties in Parliament, and there are mixed views on these 3. The majority side is clear that what the Speaker did was right in referring their absence to the Privileges Committee. In fact, the majority leader's position is that once the referral has been made, the committee's report should be final, shouldn't even return to the House for a debate or a vote. Very interesting position indeed, as we've heard. Now, the minority side, they are opposed to the Speaker's referral, and they've raised several questions about this, including the fact that the decision by the Speaker is procedurally wrong, and they filed a motion to challenge it, led by the Muntaka Mubarak. Now, we've seen Samokudu Tablaka, who, by the way, was the first to raise these issues. He had gone into the standing orders, had gone also into the votes and proceedings, and had tracked the absence of some of these members of Parliament. In fact, these 3 in question, and had raised it publicly, and had said to me on this show that he was going to bring a proper motion to the floor to draw the Speaker's attention to it. Well, as we know, a former member of the NDC had triggered this already, and indeed, it's the Speaker had taken the decision that this is something that Parliament should act on. Now, we also took our time, our research desk took its time to sort of verify for ourselves the claims of absenteeism against these 3 members of Parliament. And this is what we found. What we found is that indeed there is a basis to refer them. And the evidence is stacked up against the 3 from the evidence that we've cross-checked and verified. And if you look at Kennedy Judgement, we found that he was present in, and this, by the way, is from October 26th, 2021 to November 25th, 2021. So there's a very set period there. That's last year when Parliament was sitting before they went on recess. That period, we found that he was present. The Parliament sat for 28 days. He was present for 4 of those days. If you look at absent without permission, he was absent without permission for 24 days, as we saw. And then longest consecutive absence without permission, so it followed continuously, was a total of 19 sittings that he was absent consecutively without permission. And that's the period there. If you look at the same period for Adwoa-Safo, that is October 26th to November 16, you find that she was present only 2 times, right? And this included the time when she came down for the budget vote to approve the budget, right? She was in 2 times. And then she begins to show absenteeism. So absent with permission was 7 days. That is that period, that specific period of October 26th to November 16. We saw that she was absent with permission for 7 days. And then absent without permission for 19 sittings. And the Constitution is clear that it is 15 sittings. And so she was absent without permission for 19 of those. Now, but it has to be consecutive, right? If you look back, we found that she was there absent without permission for 13 sittings, right, for that period. If you come to her record, almost similar numbers, because present, same period, 5 sittings, absent without permission, 23. So that's a significant number of time. Longest consecutive absence without permission is 19 sittings, very same as Adwoa-Safo in that period. Now let's change the period. Let's come to this year. We're looking at 4th March, from 4th to 10th March, and we're using these periods because that's a period that we can confirm, because it's the evidence available to us as we access it from Parliament, you see that Kennedy Pond was present for 12 of the 28 sittings and absent for 16. So one sitting above the constitutional threshold. And the longest consecutive was 4 sittings. And so there's a problem there. Adwoa Safo from January 25th to March 17, January 25th to March 17, you find present 0. She's not been there at all. And she's missed the entire of the sitting before Parliament went on this recess yesterday. So she's not been to Parliament this year at all. And it's without permission. We've heard from the minority chief whip that she's being treated unfairly by the minority side, the majority side, because she wrote a requesting for absence using real serious evidence to back the request. The Muntaka Mubarak told us on the show yesterday that she had submitted documents to make the point that the U.S. Social Welfare Department equivalent had asked that her children be taken away from her, and that if she didn't go back to the U.S. where the children are, she may lose her children. And it's a reason that she put forward. We've heard tonight that account isn't accurate. The majority side say there's no document on record that she indeed putting that request back that with the evidence that had been suggested. And so there are very varying sides to it. The speaker himself, I must say, is on record to have said that she had been away without his permission. And I guess the assumption there is the speaker had not seen any formal request before him. So there's a very interesting, dynamics here. And Muntaka was suggesting that both the speaker and the majority leadership had been unfair to her. The speaker had publicly stated that, he didn't give her permission to be absent. If you look at the Henry Porte, same. We know that he wasn't well. Same applies to Kennedy Pond. The question then remains Adwoa Safo. We've heard only from the minority chief whip about her real reasons, which is very fascinating on PM Express yesterday. We'll try and get some clarity from the deputy majority whip who's joining us for PM Express. So what do they know about Adwoa Safo's reasons for being absent? Because we know something very clearly about Henry Quote and Kennedy Pond, because they've said publicly that they were not well during the time that they were on recess. Now, again, if you track generally, there's a big question, though, that we need to be interrogated. That's why I'm delighted that Dr. Bafo Ejumendria is joining me, because many members of Parliament over the time have been absent from the House, right? And if you track, on February 15, there were 32 MPs who were in the House. And if you check the votes and position, you see that. And this seemed to climb. The trend seemed to go up significantly after March, where we have 157 members of Parliament on a particular day, and this on the 10th of March, were not present in the House. And you've seen that Parliament, in some instances, last year or 2 weeks ago, had failed to do business. They got there, no quorum, suspension, right? And then you see it climbs up on the 17th, I think, of March. You have 140 MPs who couldn't be bothered to go to Parliament, and they were not recorded there, so they were absent. So there's a bigger question there that we need to be interrogating. And then absent with permission. Some of them were absent, but with permission. And if you see that huge, the graph just tells a story. There are a lot of them who will write and say yes, they have reason to be absent, and we try to track that as well. We're going to be looking into this, but there are some fascinating dynamics there I want to interrogate a bit more. I am fascinated that it is the minority side that seem to be opposed to their opponents losing their seats, which is interesting by itself. The minority side is fighting for the 3 MPP MPs, while the majority side, their own members, they say, no, we let them go and face the Sahindrin at the Privileges Committee with the potential that they will lose some seats. It's really fascinating dynamics there. What really is the reason for this position that we're seeing from Parliament? My guest will join me after this break. Stay with me. My guest joining me right now is Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. He is a ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, a member of Parliament himself. Also joining me is Habib Idris. He's the Deputy Majority Whip. We'll be joined shortly by Professor Bafo Ejimendua, who is a former senior UN governance advisor, but he's also a co-founder of the Center for Democratic Development, and pretty shortly on this. But let me start with you, Mr. Ablakwa. You were, if I'm not mistaken, were the first to dig into the evidence in Parliament and come up with the absentee list of these MPs. Now, action has been taken by the Speaker. Does that address the action of the Speaker? Happy with it? Hello, Mr. Ablakwa, kindly unmute for me.
Yeah, hello?
I can hear you, yes.
Can you hear me, Evans?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, good evening to you, Evans, to the panel, and to all distinguished viewers. You do know that I have already commended the Right Honourable Speaker for taking the bold step. We are in uncharted waters. This is the first time that the Speaker has presented very clearly and in a very erudite manner what he did under Standing Order 53, formal communications from the Speaker, where he served notice that the canker of absenteeism would no longer be tolerated, and that he expects that honourable members of Parliament be honourable, live up to their name, attend proceedings, be judicious, and be diligent with their work. I honestly think that that's the way to go. I am also glad that the initial focus, which was on only one member of Parliament, the Honourable Adjoa Safo, you'll recall, Evans, that I dug into the votes and proceedings, did a research, and discovered that our colleagues on the other side were being most unfair to the Honourable Adjoa Safo, that there are 3 MPs who should receive the same flack, who should face the same music. We should not discriminate. We shouldn't antagonize only one person. If we want to fight absenteeism, let's fight it across board. Let us be fair with our approach, and let us not engage in any selectivity. So I am glad that when the Right Honourable Speaker asked the table office to carry out the checks, conduct the same research which I did, they returned with the same outcome, that it is 3 MPs, not 1. So we have the Honourable Adjoa Safo for Dom Kwabena, we have the Honourable Kennedy Ejepong for Asen Central, and we have the Honourable Henry Korte, Greater Accra Regional Minister, for Ayawaso Central. They are all complicit. And at this point, they must all face the same music, appear before the Privileges Committee to, as it were, explain why their seats should not be declared vacant. I have also insisted that it is important that we are guided by the Court of Appeal decision in the now famous Professor Stephen Kweku Asari case. And I do hope that the initial, disputations about the procedure and how we should go about, enforcing this Article 97(1)(c) provision, we are able to jump that hurdle and make sure that we set a good precedent which can stand the test of time, and which will also not appear as though we are on a collision course with the judiciary.
I mean, Habib Idris is the Deputy Majority Whip. He's with me. Let me bring him in. Habib, you accept that your 3 members, as Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa had just stated, are all complicit, guilty of the charge of being absent without permission for, in this case, more than 15 sittings?
Yes, Evans, good evening to your viewers. The fact that I totally don't agree, because the Committee on Privileges will be doing a lot of work, because if you look at our standing orders, in Standing Order 27, when matters like this are reported or referred to the Committee of Privileges, they have to investigate and examine before they report. So the fact that, yes, this session you could see that majority of them were unavailable. But yet to do our own check, to be able to come to a conclusion that, yes, the Honorable Henry Kote, last session, that's based on your analysis from the last session of the last meeting of the last session of 2021 were available, and that of Honorable Kennedy Agyapong. But what has been established is the fact that this parliament is a very unique parliament, and then every member is a decision maker in with regards to the majority side. If one member is not there and you have to take a decision, it is a problem. So the fact that this thing have come to light at the moment is a result of the unique nature of the 8th Parliament. So I will definitely be looking up to the work of the committee and to see the conclusions that they will come up to. It was not hidden, even to an extent that people were already speculating in the media that Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, he has passed away, he's very sick, he's in US, he's doing that, it was in the public domain. And then also Honorable Henry Kote too, we also heard similar things about him. But not to say that even though we were hearing those things, it's just an excuse for them not to show up in Parliament. The Speaker have actually, putting the whole House now into a bit of confusion, let me put it this way, because he has said that even if you are at a committee meeting and you are not in the chamber, you are still within Parliament. He has said so that he has stopped signing the attendance sheet from the time of Peter Alajete because it is not a verification that you were in Parliament or you were not in Parliament. He has said that to that effect. So at the moment, I think the committee have a serious task to be able to establish what actually the case might be. But it is an established fact that a whole meeting of a session, when we started in 2022, the whole meeting of a session, one of those who have been referred to the committee have actually not show up even once. Because this is
Adwoa Safo.
Yes, because I could see that when you were doing your projection, you put it at 0 in terms of appearance. So, and to also say, like my colleague Honorable Black was saying, that we in the majority have been unfair to our colleague Honorable Sarah Adwoa Safo. I don't know where it is coming from because, one, we haven't petitioned because of her absence. We haven't moved any motion in Parliament for her to be referred to the Committee of Privileges or any otherwise. So to conclude that we are a bit unfair to her, it's putting me in a difficult situation to understand how unfair we have been with her. Because the majority side, we could actually also get up to move a motion to say that she should be referred to the Committee on Privilege. Because the Speaker have made it clear in the House that Adwoa Safo never asked permission from him, and the statement that was speculating that the Speaker, have given her permission not to be around is not true. That has been established, and it also has been established that she hasn't shown up. So we could move a motion, but we just think that it was not the right thing. But now the Speaker have actually taken it up on himself, and he has been able to refer these 3 members to the committee. I know our friends from the minority said that they are going to come up with a substantive motion to challenge the actions of the Speaker.
They have actually filed that substantive motion.
Yes, but you see, admissibility of motion lies in the hands of the Speaker. So he is the same person who has to admit the motion or not. There are many motions or many other incidents that have been filed in Parliament for people to be referred to the Committee of Privileges, and the Speaker reclined. One typical example was I move a motion in Parliament sometime for Sami Gyamfi, the National Communication Director of the NDC, to be referred to the Committee of Privilege. We haven't heard anything about that because he has attacked the leadership of the Parliament and his side. But the Speaker didn't admit it. So admissibility of motion also still lie in the hands of the Speaker. So the Speaker can decide not to accept the motion. We have also filed another motion that is to investigate on the circumstances that led to the death of our former president. This motion hasn't been accepted. Another thing. So admissibility of motion lies in the bosom of the Speaker. So until he accepts that motion, what we can deal with at the moment is that the incident has been referred to the Committee of Privileges, which is made up of a 25-member committee, and then 13 from the majority side, including the chairman, and 12 from the minorities side. So we'll see how they will.
Let me ask you for clarity on this. Kenneth Japon, yes, you mentioned that he wasn't well. You are in the leadership, and you are a deputy chief whip. So the applications for permission would have ideally come to your office or your boss, Anodompre. Can you tell us if he and Henry Quarte submitted requests for permission to your office?
To my personal office, I would say no. Okay. But we are 5 in leadership.
So definitely. Are you aware if any of your leadership got that?
I cannot speak to that unless they are engaged and they can speak for themselves. But what I do know is that the leave of absence form can be signed by the majority leader, the deputy majority leader, the chief whip, and the first and second deputy whip. Any of us can actually sign that and then refer it to the speaker too. And the speaker too will definitely be able to work on it. And I think recently it was referred to the second deputy speaker, who, if you fill the leave of absence form, it is the second deputy speaker who actually minutes it on behalf of the speaker. And sometimes to questions goes to him and statement goes to the first deputy speaker. I think they have actually been able to craft their work of doing. But you see, I was making a point. Honorable Henry Quarte and Honorable Kennedy Ajapong, they have actually been seen in this meeting of this session of Parliament, yes. Even though you have been able to admit or say that. You see, sometimes the fact is that your name might appear on the vote and proceedings as absent, and yet you are not absent. The case in point is one time, I think Honorable Mutala or Honorable Sohine raised order 48 for us to form a quorum. The speaker made us count the number of people who were in the chamber, and we were only 42. Then the next day when the vote and proceedings came, we were about 118.
Yeah.
You get a point. And there was a day that I was the only available leader who was actually prosecuting government business in the House. And the next day when the vote and proceedings came, I was marked absent. Meanwhile, I was the one prosecuting government business. Just the day before yesterday, when Honorable Afenyo was in the House, and then he was in the chamber, he even contributed to debates and other things. But the next day when the vote and proceedings came, he was marked as absent with permission. And he was actually asking such questions. So the vote and proceedings actually, even if you are not around, assuming the day I led government business and I was marked absent, if I was not in the chamber, to be able to draw the speaker attention that I was in the chamber, but I was marked absent, it will stand as I was absent. So it's a very dicey situation. And if you look at our outstanding orders, like I rightly said, order 27 or so, and I think they said, let me just get it and see. Order 27 says that notwithstanding anything contained in these orders, Mr. Speaker may refer any question of privileges to the Committee of Privilege for examination, investigation, and report.
Okay, so the expectation is that the Privilege Committee will get into it and resolve this based on the evidence. Let me bring Rukujo to Ablakwa briefly and get to Professor Ablakwa. Stay with me, Mr. Abib. Stay with me, Mr. Abib. I just want to bring in Rukujo to Ablakwa. Mr. Ablakwa, so as we speak tonight, the minority leadership, your side, Muntaka Mubarak, they filed the motion, and the motion is challenging the Speaker's referral to the Privileges Committee. In essence, they believe the procedure was wrong. Is this a motion that you support?
Well, let me state that, first of all, the position taken by the Honorable Muntaka Mubarak is largely a personal position. We haven't caucused on this. I haven't been invited to any caucus meeting where we have discussed it and taken a common position. So at this point, it is an action which is solely in the name of the Honorable Muntaka Mubarak. And so if you studied that motion carefully, you notice that he signs on his behalf and he leaves it there. He does not drag in the entire caucus. I honestly take a different view, and I expressed that on the floor of Parliament yesterday. I align myself with the appeal court decision that once you go beyond 15 days, it is now a matter that is out of your hands. The seat is automatically vacant. And so the matter should just be determined by the Privileges Committee as Article 97(1)(c) states.
So that's the position of Majority Leader Chairman Sabungs on the floor yesterday, that Privileges Committee shouldn't come back to the Parliament for debate.
Well, for that portion, that the matter should not come back to Parliament, for that I disagree. Look, all committees of Parliament are acting on delegated authority. All committees. I am not aware of any committee, be they standing committees, select committees, or ad hoc committees, that carry out their mandates and do not report to plenary. There is no committee, not one. There's no such precedent. All committees must report to the House, to plenary, for a final decision, for a final vote. I do not know what our colleagues are so scared of, that they do not want these matters to be brought to the floor. Is it because, at least at the Privileges Committee, they have a one-man majority, at least everybody is intact on their side at the Privileges Committee, 16-15. And that is why they want to circumvent, lay down traditions, lay down procedures which are expressly stated. Because when it comes to the House, the plenary, they know that they begin with a deficit of 1. The Honorable Ajasafo is not around. And it's also not clear if those who we are going to pass judgment on can, participate in the vote, if there has to be a vote. And so they see that they will be disadvantaged by 3 at the minimum. And that is why they are afraid for that report to be brought to the plenary. But you see, we shouldn't do things that way, where we act on convenience. When it's not in our favor, then we want to, as it were, mutilate the laws and just circumvent, lay down processes and traditions. We must be clear that all committees are acting on delegated authority by the power of the House. You must come back to us, present your report, and we will take the final decision. That is what we expect. So honestly, because we're in uncharted waters, because if you look at what happened in 2008 with Eric Amwatin, that was an entirely different matter, where somebody has, a brush with the law. He's been arrested in the United States of America over drug-related offenses. The Privileges Committee had met and said that, look, because of his legal challenges, let's give him, some indefinite leave. Professor Kweku Azan said, no, that's not fair. That disadvantages the people of Nkranza, his constituents. He goes to the High Court, goes all the way to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal said, yes, you can't give, this blank check, this carte blanche for an MP to be, absent for as long as he so desires. So that was the facts of that matter was entirely different from what we have now. But at least it gives us some, guidance as to how to proceed. And that is why I say that let's take that guidance. Let us carry out this work, dispassionately. Look, I have also said publicly that I disagree with the Bagbin doctrine on presence. I think it flies against everything about being present and voting under Article 1041. You must be in the chamber. Why is it that under Order 48, the bell is rung? If proceedings are going on and a member of parliament rises to raise an issue on quorum, our standing orders under Order 48 mandates the speaker to then cause the bell to be rung for 10 minutes for everybody to come into the chamber. So honestly, the Right Honorable Speaker's decision, I find it really absurd. With all due respect, I have enormous respect for the Right Honorable Speaker. He knows that. But as for this matter on presence, I am on all fours with Speaker Lajete, who was the first to pronounce on this matter. He said that when you go to the mails room and you go and sign and you don't come into the chamber, that signature will not be recognized. You are absent. You didn't come into the chamber. Speaker Doa Jaho followed that same principle. Speaker Professor Okwe followed that same principle. I served under all these speakers. I was a member of the House, and that has been the principle. I find this Bagbin doctrine really strange indeed. It doesn't sit well with me. It will require major amendments to our standing orders. Why do we still have Order 48? Why is it that bells must be rung? And you now have this absurd situation where a member of parliament is brought from hospital. We are told he's in an ambulance. The speaker told me when I got up to, insist that the Honorable Kojo Kum's name should be expunged from the list of those present. The speaker said, I saw him in the ambulance. And even that has become, I've heard a majority leader say that, he wasn't really in the ambulance, he was in the clinic. So you are even having contradictory, and that is why we will have avoided all of these contradictions if we are stuck to the Peter Lajete doctrine, to the Bamford Addo doctrine, to the Doa Jaho doctrine, to the Professor Okwe doctrine, where you must be present and voting, as Article 1041, insists. I've also heard Habib this evening try to bring in, there might have been errors in the votes and proceedings and all of that. I want to assure Honorable Habib, he knows I'm very thorough. I take my research seriously. I have gone beyond votes and proceedings. I've looked at official reports. I've looked at video evidence. You know that it's available. All what we do is online. And if you are minded to go onto our website or our Facebook, you can get the footage of attendance. So all of that has been done. I don't see, you can't come and claim that look, those 18 days that they were absent, the Honorable Kennedy Japon and the Honorable Henry Kote, I know for certain, they themselves have not challenged it. Since I put this out about 2 months ago, they have not challenged it. All they have said is that they have their medical reports. You see, let's do things right. How difficult is it for you to cause your RAs or your PAs or your secretaries in your office to just write to the speaker on your behalf and obtain permission or inform your leadership that, look, this is a difficulty I find myself. You see, we should be interested in the collective image of Parliament. Are we happy when we are always being bashed? People say we are not serious, we don't take our work serious, we don't even deserve the title. You have Odikro always doing this research and coming out to bash us. We can't form quorum every now and then. Look, we must admit that after some 30 years of this democracy, we cannot be doing things the same old way. We cannot be on a downward spiral. We must cut a better image. We must improve, and that is why some of us. It's nothing personal. I don't have any personal dislike for anybody affected. I set out to do this research without any malice aforethought. I didn't know who the net will catch. It's just happened some way, somehow that all the 3 MPs involved, are on the MPP side. But I think that, we shouldn't try to obfuscate or bring in scenarios that really do not exist. I think that there's a solid grounds for these people to appear before this committee.
Stay with me. Let me bring in Professor Bafo Ejimendua. Hello, Prof. Prof, thank you for joining us. He's joining us on phone. We lost him on Zoom. Hello, Prof.
Yes, sir.
Prof, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, this is
my pleasure.
This is a conversation I'm pretty sure that in your long life of engaging on democracy and good governance issues, you definitely would have engaged on. It's come full circle now. It's come to a head. Finally, Parliament is taking steps now to deal with this matter. In the past, we've seen that they tried before. The court had to step in 2008 now to rein them in. Now, 3 members have been referred to the Privileges Committee. I ask you, do you support the approach that under Alban Bagbin is being taken now to try and sanitize the system?
Certainly, any effort to sanitize the system, bring some kind of discipline to this very, very important democratic institution must be welcome. My only It is, especially I listen very closely to the argument of Muntaka Mubarak, the honorable member of the House, when he stood firm to really forcefully made his point about the Speaker's approach to it. I don't think he was necessarily opposed to getting these three individuals who were absent to be penalized for whatever breaches they may have caused. But I think he raised a principle that I believe those with technical knowledge can confer. The point was whether the petition to proceed to refer these individuals to the Privileges Committee should come from a member of parliament or a non-member of parliament. In this case, apparently, it came from a non-member of parliament. And that is a very interesting point that Mubarak I think raised, which we should give serious attention to. But I think besides that, if you look at the chaos that we've been experiencing lately in this institution, or within the context of experiencing a hung parliament for the first time in our republic, the Fourth Republic, and then you can understand why it's important that discipline is introduced. That is where I guess I side very much with the last speaker. Yes, talking about the need to bring some kind of discipline, making sure that the procedures are well followed. After 30 years of experimenting with the Republic, I think we are coming to maturity. And that also surprises me that despite that, some people who are veterans of this particular parliament, of the Fourth Republic, especially the Speaker, who is a veteran, he's gone through all the various positions in parliament all the way to the top. I suppose he knows how this institution works. He must be very, very familiar with the standing orders because it hasn't been radically changed since it was introduced and all. So if, in fact, despite that, he's fumbling with some of these, as I think Ablakwa pointed out, then that also surprises me. But overall, I think it's an interesting situation we have. That we are testing this institution, and we are testing it legally. Those who decide to go to the Supreme Court for interpretations on certain procedures, and no, they are all meant to strengthen it. Actually, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. So overall, I'm pleased with what is going on, hoping that at the end of it all, there will be clarity on how this very important institution functions in our democracy.
You raised a procedural question, and now I'll bring in the two members of parliament in this, but let me stay with you, Prof. I mean, the procedural question, and I get a sense that you support Muntaka's point there, that... that
is to say, if the point he raised is in fact based on the standing orders.
Yes. So his point is that, in a sense, a member of parliament should do so, raise the point. And the speaker by himself has no authority to refer a matter when a member of parliament had not raised it. And his fear is, if you allow the current precedent that was just set yesterday to stand, then any speaker who is a dictator in the future can, by himself, or get somebody from outside parliament to bring a petition and then just simply refers a member of parliament to the Privileges Committee with the risk of losing his seat. I mean, is it, Professor Thomas, is that a view you support, that it should necessarily come from a sitting member of parliament? Hello, Professor.
Is asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you. Is that a position you support?
Yes. Because you see, if we are not careful, and like he rightly said, if you get a speaker who is different in attitude and approach to things, and who is going to tolerate any kind of petition, then we can have a situation where anybody, for all kinds of reasons, could throw in a petition just to disorganize the institution. So I think we have to guard against that. And I think if the thing comes from a member of parliament, then I think the person stands on a very solid ground in terms of the procedures and all. So if, for instance, I have a case that I want to bring to attention of the speaker, why can't I go to my parliamentarian? That's why they represent us. So that the MP from my area should be able to stand in and make that kind of presentation on my behalf. I think that's a better and neater way, rather than to open the doors for anyone having a grievance to kind of throw it in. The parliament may be deluded with all kinds of petitions. I don't think they can cope with that. So I think there must be a control. And the control mechanism should be to have it coming from members of parliament.
Yeah, Mr. Baba, but here's a challenge. What if the members of parliament themselves, and as we saw in this case, the evidence was clear that, on the face of it, and we checked ourselves, that members of parliament have been absent beyond the constitutional threshold of 15 days, and yet parliament itself wasn't ready to bring this up. You're saying that we, the citizens who are being served, we see that, we verify it, the members of parliament who, self-serving purposes possibly, are not ready to move forward and sanction their own, we cannot initiate the process for sanctions to take place?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said we can, but the process should be directed through appropriate offices. That's why I suggested that I do have an MP from my area. That we should make use of our MP. So in this case, our MPs should be the gatekeepers.
So what if the MP doesn't take your petition to him seriously? What do you do as a citizen?
Wow, then of course we have a secretariat, we have a clerk. You see, there are all kinds of mechanisms we can create within the institution. My concern here is that if you open the gates that wide, then you are allowing anything to come in. And that can be very challenging. So I think there must be a way to see these kinds of petitions that come. So if your MP is complicit in the issue that is at stake, then there must be another way to pass. Any other MP can do that on your behalf, by the way. It shouldn't be restricted to your own parliamentarians. But the point is this. I think citizens should continue to have access to their institutions, but it should be through our elected representatives. That will bring some neatness to the whole approach, rather than opening the doors for anyone who wants to come in to do so. Because I'm afraid if you did that, we're going to have some kind of chaos in terms of what will come in and the kind of people who, for all kinds of reasons, it could be personal, it could be all kinds of things. That if there's a system where such complaints are received and they are sifted through, prima facie is established, then of course the institution can start the ball rolling by processing the complaint.
Mr. Blakwa, you were the first to raise this matter and produce the evidence, but I must point out that happened outside the precinct of the formal parliamentary process. Why didn't you take the formal step of bringing this either through a motion or to the floor or to triggering the process for the constitutional sanctions to be applied? Sorry, Mr. Blakwa, if you may unmute for me. I think you may have muted. I can hear you now. I can hear you now. I can.
Yeah, so Evans, I must confirm to you this evening that when all the evidence was put together, I had a discussion with the Right Honorable Speaker on the matter. And he advised that I hold on a bit and that he was preparing a comprehensive statement on absenteeism, and that after that, we can proceed to the next step. So based on that discussion that I had with the Right Honorable Speaker in his office, I decided to comply, to be an obedient member of parliament. So that is why I did not, because remember that on your show, I had served notice that I was going to trigger the processes on the floor. But following my meeting with the Right Honorable Speaker, I thought that I should be fair to the approach that he had recommended. But if I may quickly also share my thoughts about this fear, this somehow morbid fear that we may want sometime in the future have an authoritarian speaker who wants to probably victimize particular members of parliament. My honest view is that I think the fear is far-fetched. First of all, you don't want to be victimized as an MP. Come to work, just attend proceedings. So if you miss 15 sittings, I won't call that victimization if a speaker on his own decides to refer your conduct to the Privileges Committee. If you are punctual, you are diligent with your work, or if there is a true emergency, the law provides under Article 97(1)(c) that seek permission. So if you didn't seek permission and you made no effort to bring whatever emergency situation is happening to you to the Speaker, to leadership of the House, and then a Speaker decides to take you on, I don't see how we can describe that Speaker as a dictator, authoritarian, somebody who is mean and doesn't like MPs. I think that would rather be a good Speaker who we should encourage to have even many more years down the lane in the future. Then it is important to also stress that no Speaker can on his own. If you look at Article 97(1)(c), it says that the Privileges Committee must come in. The Privileges Committee is specifically mentioned. It's one of the few instances where the Privileges Committee is mentioned in the Constitution. So there's no Speaker, no matter how dictatorial, no matter how scary that Speaker may be, he cannot on his own just pronounce that this MP is out, we are going for a by-election next week. You cannot do that. The Privileges Committee must come in and you must be heard. The principles of natural justice. You will be heard if there is any justification for your truancy. So I really think that, we are stretching matters. And you see, also on the matter of who can petition, who can trigger these processes. Look, all over the world, they are moving towards what they call open parliaments. And in other jurisdictions now, on very important matters, which parliaments do not even want to pay attention to, they are able to start online. And in the House of Commons is very popular now. They start an online campaign, and the law is clear. If they are able to garner 10,000 signatures, 30,000 signatures, 50,000 signatures, this is how urgent Parliament must respond. You don't have a choice. The Speaker, all of you, you must respond, because you see, we are the people's representatives. If the people feel strongly about a matter, the principles of an open Parliament, you must act. So I even want a situation where our standing orders will be amended, where this business of, petitions should always come to a member of Parliament. What if we become, you one day have a Parliament where, is the truancy is so, entrenched, and everybody is misbehaving, and we decide that we are forming a cabal, a clique, to protect each other. Even if you listen carefully to what is going on now, you can see that these three MPs, people have their favorites. Somebody wants to protect Adjoa Safo and...
Oh, unfortunately, I think it may have lost his feed.
Another protect. So I would prefer a situation honestly, where we can.
Oh, goodness me. We're having a challenge with this line. Let me bring in Mr. Habib Idris very quickly.
Play a role. Ras Mubarak, also a former MP, took interest in this matter. So let's look at what progressive parliaments are doing in other jurisdictions, where online campaigns are even influencing the business of the House.
Let me get Habib Idris. Mr. Idris, do you agree with that view?
No, I disagree entirely, and I'm just struggling right now to fit in the position of Honorable Ablakwa. I don't know whether it is the case that he's behind Honorable Ras Mubarak petition, because based on his position. And if you actually look at the Constitution in Article 97(c), there are two key important things that have been said in that part of it. It says that a member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament. And the C says, if he absents without the permission in writing of the Speaker. That's number one. And he is unable to offer a reasonable explanation to the Committee of Privileges. This has actually is the key part of the argument, that you haven't asked permission from the Speaker. You have not been able to give reasonable explanation to the Committee of Privilege. Now, Evans, let's interrogate the issue further. So if it is the case that if the Committee on Privileges, which is a constitutional requirement in Article 97(1)(c), is saying that the privilege committee should take a decision if you are not able to give reasonable explanation or give in writing that you are absent. And give in writing is not only petition, even the leave of absence is also writing to the speaker, meaning you fill the form, your leadership approve, and the speaker also approve. Now, the case is that if you say that it has to come back to the preliminary for us to take a decision, what about, for example, like in the case in the 7th Parliament, when MPP had 169 members of Parliament and NDC had 106 members of Parliament, then they refer 3 members of MPP to the Privileges Committee, and then they bring it, even though they have violated the constitutional requirement, then they bring it back to Parliament, to the preliminary. Because the majority have their numbers, then they said no. Then where do we stand?
Okay.
So I find it very difficult to be able to fit in the position of Honorable Ablakwa.
Unfortunately,
in one instance,
can you give me a quick thought on the procedure, though? I mean, and I just have 30 seconds on this. Should it be restricted to a member of parliament or from outside people to can bring a petition?
In that direction, I agree with Prof that we don't need to leave our windows too wide open so that people can just drag members of parliament to a committee of privileges. But in this instance, I don't know whether it is the case that Honorable Ablakwa has asked Ras Mubarak to do that because he's so defensive of the fact that he has to do that, even though there's no laid down procedure. And I am convinced in my mind that he has actually aided Honorable Ras Mubarak to actually petition for them to be referred to the committee. Because he has double standard. Whether constitutional requirement, like I set an example, does that have to come back to the preliminary? The point is that the committee need to take a decision, and when the committee take a decision, it becomes final. What about if the committee take a decision based on the constitution? You have absent more than 15 consecutive sittings. Then you come to the chamber.
I think you made that point earlier. But I'm grateful, gentlemen. I really wish I could get a quick thought from Prof. So you heard both sides there. And we've very interesting indeed. I mean, we haven't heard the last of this. The Committee of Privileges will look into the matter, and we will get some clarity on who is losing his seat or her seat in the end. Enjoy the rest of your evening.